start with this clip of George Bush, who gave a speech. People are making an issue of he didn't mention Donald Trump by name, et cetera, et cetera. I found George Bush's speech to be fine, except for who delivered it, which was George Bush. One of the problems that we have is not holding to account our leaders or the establishment, as Cenk, who was just here, said. And this is, this is the dilemma, right? I mean, you want to hold the Democratic Party establishment to account, good. But if you can't hold to account the guy who lied this country into its worst foreign policy disaster ever, who cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis, this is Defense Department numbers. Other numbers go up to 500,000, close to 1 million, who caused a refugee problem, 2 million internal, 2 million external refugees, immigrants fleeing from their country, fleeing from where they lived. Obviously, continues to be destabilized today. I mean, if you can't hold this guy to account, and you need this guy to be the voice of reason, Jesus. All right.
Gotta turn the page.
In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed in the face of obvious and pressing needs. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Discontent deepened and sharpened partisan conflicts. Bigotry seems emboldened. Our politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication. There are some signs that the intensity of support for democracy itself has waned, especially among the young, who never experienced the galvanizing moral clarity of the Cold War, or never focused on the ruin of entire nations by socialist central planning. Some have called this democratic deconsolidation. Really, it seems to be a combination of weariness,
old times,
frayed tempers, and forgetfulness.
Old times there.
And forgetfulness. I mean, I'm sorry. First of all, we're told that he wrote this speech. Okay? I mean, honestly. Because if this was really heartfelt, he'd have just been up there going like, I apologize. Sorry, I fucked up. I did all of the things I'm talking about. Like, all of what he's talking about were a function of his administration. Every single, if we brought it up on a little screen here, and we could do the bullet points, it would just be like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. We could probably put dates to these things. Honestly, I mean, George Bush as a member of the resistance, I'm sorry.
In like 15 years, it's going to be like, I don't know, Ted Cruz or some other monster that's only on like the horizon now, and Trump's going to be like, there was a time when we came together as Americans in a certain sense. Now you see a great deal of hostility.
The polarization I see is unprecedented. It really is. It really is.
I wanted
people are going, well, Ted Cruz is so crazy. We need. Look, yeah. I mean,
thank you, President Trump, for those considered words. He didn't overtly say that white nationalists should plant bombs in places, and the current president does.
There's a problem with bigotry. I mentioned this with Cenk. I remember one of the most harrowing experiences I remember as an adult was watching George Bush address the nation from the Oval Office, looking directly into camera and talking about how he felt bad about it, but he needed to promote a constitutional amendment to the Constitution, saying that gay people did not have the same rights as straight people. And
But he said it civilly.
Like, yeah, except I didn't. He didn't say like I grab him by the sack or something.
Maybe you should grab him by the sack. Maybe you should.
And I will also concede that because of who can hear my voice, but I think frankly I would probably feel the same, not the same if I was on certainly I would feel the same way if I was on radio, and I imagine TV as well. That there's a certain, you can have your cake and eat it too quality to this. But people should not be holding this guy up, particularly on the left, particularly on the center left even. Because the center will, he's useful for Republicans. Let them use him.
Right.
But for the rest of us who didn't have the ability to hold him to account when he was actively doing this, when Barack Obama was president, somebody that nobody thought was just going to go off and, nuke North Korea, we couldn't hold George Bush to account. Don't stop trying now. And that's the only thing I would say. I mean, it's like, I'm sorry. This is, I'm not going to, it's not necessary for me and for the left to hold this guy in any regard whatsoever. And you shouldn't.
I wanted to give him some props for not dancing like he did at the funeral for the Dallas police officer.
Yeah, he didn't rock back and forth. I know those weapons of mass destruction got to be around here somewhere.
What an asshole. But I mean, but don't you just think, though, that, David Frum is the obvious example, but I mean, people are idealizing the CIA in the context of, it supposedly being a bulwark against Trump. Like, I think that ship has already sailed for a certain set of the center and slight center left.
Well,
where they basically, it's just, and I think it has something to do with an over-focus on manners as well.
Comey tweeted from his Reinhold Niebuhr Twitter account yesterday from West Point, and everyone was going crazy over it.
And nobody remember, even him. I mean, how did the guy build his career? By luring Muslim teenagers with learning severe cognitive limits to go into fake terrorist attacks. It's essentially a major part of where he was.
I agree, but George Bush is the prime example of this, right?
Sure
everything else,
thing.
Comey is a low-level apparatchik. People won't remember Jim Comey, in 10 years. I can assure you of that. Because people don't remember him from 10 years earlier, where,
exactly.
When he was
they won't
supposedly
remember him.
Right.
He's a loser.
Exactly. Loser.
Guess who will be remembered?
Guess who will be remembered?
Not as tall as they say, too.
Not as tall. Luther Strange was tall. He's a freak.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos